Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to make a game. I'm going to show you dot notations, how to assign a random value. We're going to be working with structs and briefly go over classes. Let's get started. The first thing I want to cover with you is we have our basic layout of our program, and here lately I've been using system pause. Before in the first few tutorials I was using send.get. And basically, I was saying that send.get was giving me issues earlier whenever using input and output. That's because I'm missing a piece of code that basically clears out what send is. It's called send.ignore. And basically what this does is it basically makes send.get work properly. I was using system pause, and I found out that it's actually not a good practice to use system pause. Instead, use send.ignore to clear out what's in send, and then use send.get to pause. The next thing we're going to be working with is a struct. What is a struct? A struct is a data structure that'll hold different members. Each member could be a different data type. For example, we're going to create a data structure called character. So how do you make that? You basically type in the keyword struct and then your variable. We're going to call this data structure character. Underneath character, we can put curly braces, and whatever we type in under character in these curly braces will be members of this data structure. We're going to create an int, call it health, assign it to 100. And then we're also going to create a string and call it name. While we're working with string, might as well go up here and include string. Just to make sure you're paying attention. Can you see anything wrong with my code so far? I'll give you a hint. I spelled character wrong. I have to put an A in here. So we have a structure called character. How can we utilize that? Well, instead of saying like int or double, instead of declaring a data type, we can actually say character as like a data type. But it's not going to be a data type. It's just more of saying that we're going to create something that's of this data structure. We're going to create a character player. And we're also going to create a character enemy. There's some other variables we're going to create. Like we need to create a variable for user input. We're going to make it a char. So we're going to say char user input. And then we're also going to create an array. This variable is going to be of int, and it's going to be called fire. We're going to put square box input 5, saying that there's going to be 5 different values to fire. We're going to say equals curly brace and put in 0, comma, 15, comma, 25, comma, 30, comma, and 50. And we're going to make sure we end it with a semicolon. What this is going to do is it's going to have 5 different values of fire: 0, 15, 25, 30, and 50. Our program is going to ask you type in a player name. So we're going to type in cout. Type in player name. And then underneath it, we're going to accept user input. So we're going to say send. And then now for a new concept, it's called dot notation. Here I can type in player. And since player is a struct, I can access a member of that structure. It tries to guess if I'm trying to say health or name. I'm going to go ahead and say name, semicolon. And basically, what dot notation is accessing a member of like a data structure and assigning it a value. So, and since we're saying that since we're getting input, whatever this input is going to assign it to player name. At the top, I have a structure called character, and character has health, and it also has a name. And then I created character player and character enemy. So player will have health and a name, and enemy will also have health and a name. We're also going to display a message asking for the enemy's name. So we're going to cout, type in enemy name. Let me just fix this up right here. And then now we're going to accept user input. So we're going to say send enemy dot name. Now when this runs, it'll first ask for the player name, and whatever the input is, we'll assign it to player name, and then it'll say type in enemy name, and whenever we get that input, it'll assign it to enemy name. The first step to generating a random value is we need to initialize the random seed. What that's going to look like is we have to type in srand parentheses time parentheses capital NULL, stands for null, double parentheses, and a semicolon. Other components that we need to make this work is in our includes, we also need to include time.h, and we also need to include a standard library. What that'll look like is include stdlib.h. And these are components used to initialize the random seed. I'll put in little comments here. Initializes random seed. The next step is to create a while loop. So basically what we're going to do is create a while loop. So we're going to say while and then parentheses while player health is greater than 0, and the operator for or is 2 pipes. While player health is greater than 0, or enemy health is greater than 0, perform an action. We'll put some curly braces here. The action that we're going to have our while loop do is we're going to say cout enemy dot name, and then we're going to put some quotations. We're going to put a single quote S, and then space health is at quotations enemy dot health. And basically what's going to happen is let's say we type in enemy's name is John. It's going to say like John, and then it's going to put this single quote S. So it's going to basically read like John's health is at enemy health. And at the top, we've declared that enemy is a part of the data structure character, and the data structure character has health that's 100. So basically, it's going to say like John's health is at 100. Now let's go ahead and say the same thing about your health. So we're going to say cout quotations your health is at quotations, and then we'll put player health. And then this will just say, instead of putting like player name, what we're going to do is just say your health. It'll just make it look a little bit better to just say your health is at 100. The game we're going to try to make is a shooting game, to where you type F to fire and you fire at your enemy, and then the enemy will also fire back at you. You'll go through rounds, and the first person's health to reach 0 loses. So the initial direction is to press F to fire. So we're going to hit cout and then type F to fire at your enemy. So you can probably guess what the next step is we need to get user input, so that way whenever the person press F, it'll fire. So basically we need to do cn operator cn user input, and up at the top, we declared as user input is char. And the reason why we chose char is because the direction is just to type in the letter F. So it's a single character. And that's what a char is it holds a single character. There is one other variable that we forgot to put in here. It's one of the components to do a random value. And what that's going to look like is int rand index equals rand parentheses modulus 5 semicolon. And basically this is one of the key components to say that whenever we utilize rand, if we use it with fire, it's going to be a random value of one of these 5 values. Now that we got our user input, let's create an if statement. Let's say if parentheses user input equals single quotation F parentheses perform an action. So what's going to happen when you fire a shot? Well, in our if statement, we said if the user input is F, so when you type F to fire your shot, what's going to happen? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to see out you fired a shot. And then we're also going to say, this is really key, enemy.health equals enemy.health minus fire square bracket rand index close square bracket semicolon. Now what this is going to do is whenever you fire a shot, it's going to take the enemy health and it's going to make it equal to enemy health minus one of the random 5 values of shots fired. Because at the top we said that a random shot could be 0, 15, 25, 30, or 50. And if we look at the values at the top, we'll notice I have one for 0 and one for 50. One's the lowest and one's the highest. I want to have a little bit more fun with that. But first, I need to teach you another vocabulary word. The word is nested. What nested means is, like, say if you have an if statement in an if statement, that is a nested if statement. You can also have loops nested inside other loops. But what we're going to do is we're going to nest an if statement. We're going to say if, parentheses, fire, square bracket, rand index, in square bracket, equals 50, perform a function. Oops, not curly brace, square bracket. Get in there. Okay, so if the randex equals 50, which is the highest value that we have, we want to display a message. Let's say that we want to see out in all caps critical hit. A few exclamation points. Because basically, since it's the highest value, we're going to say that, you know, you got a critical hit if you randomly get the highest value for a shot. Now, on the flip side of that, we can do if parentheses fire square rand index, if I can spell right, index in square brackets equals 0 in parentheses curly brace. We're going to say see out your shot missed. So that way it kind of has a little bit more, it's a little bit more involved, because if you get the random highest hit, then it's going to be a critical hit. But if your value is 0, it's going to be like, man, your shot missed. Alright, so let me just correct some spelling here. Your shot missed. Okay, make sure we're at the curly brace at the end of that. The nested if statement, we're going to hit enter. And now the next thing we're going to do is rand index got assigned a number here. And basically we need to put that number back to 0. So we're going to say like rand index equals 0. And then we're also going to reassign it a random value, so that way it can be different than the previous random value. We're going to say rand index equals rand parentheses modulus 5. Gotta make sure if you capitalize the letter to make sure you capitalize it, or else it will not work. So basically what we're doing here is we're taking the random index that got assigned a random value, we're putting it back to 0, and then we're saying random index is another one of those random 5 values. The next thing we need to do is we need to display the information for the enemy firing a shot. So basically we see out, let's see here, we see out enemy.name operator fired a shot. Enemy fired a shot. And then underneath that, we type in player health equals player player health minus fire, and then square brackets, rand index in square brackets semicolon. And what this will do is this will take player health and subtract it from a random value from fire, and this is basically to represent the enemy firing a shot. Now we also can we can nest another if statement, kind of like how we did for critical hit and you missed a shot. Actually, I tell you what is, let's just go ahead and copy that that statement and put it under it, because it should have the same value as what we declared up here as, you know, getting a critical hit or you missed your shot. How about we put here, instead of your shot missed, we make it say enemy dot name operator shot miss, enemy single quotation S, so that way if it's like John, so John's shot missed. So now that our loop is finished, we have it to where basically it'll continue to run the loop and you continue to fire shot until basically someone's health is less than or equal to 0. So what's going to happen after that? We need to display messages basically saying if the enemy's health is below 0, then you win. Or if the player's health is lower than 0, then you lose. So basically what we're going to do is create another if statement. We're going to say if parentheses enemy health is less than or equal to 0, perform an action. We're going to display a message. We're going to say cout, you win, exclamation points. And then we're also going to create another if statement, saying that if player health is less than or equal to 0, then sadly you lose. And we'll put let's see here. Okay, so in our curly braces, we're going to say cout, you lose, you lose. And one other thing that's going to happen is, so basically if you win or you lose, the program's going to terminate. So how are we going to terminate? First, we're going to do send.ignore parentheses semicolon, that clears sin, and then we're going to send.get, that performs the pause, and then we're going to return 0, and that's going to terminate the program. We're going to do the same for this for the lose statement as well. So we're going to say send.ignore send.get, and return 0. All right. Now, one thing I also noticed is that whenever it continues to go through the loop, we don't have the random set up correctly for the loop. What we need to do is we need to take rand index and we need to put it in our loop, so that way whenever it loops through in our while loop, we need to make it to where it'll reset the randomness back to 0, or else when it loops, basically the player's random number is going to be the same as the previous loop's enemy's value. So to do that, we're going to say rand index equals 0. So just right quick, as an overview, what we have is we first have our tools. So we're going to include IOStream, include time.h, include standard library.h, include string using namespace. We created a data structure called character, and character has two members. It has health and it also has a name. We have two characters, one player and one enemy. Our user input, we have an array that's an int data type that has 5 values, and the values are 0, 15, 25, 30, and 50. Then we have our random index as rand modulus 5, saying that this is going to be a random value of one of these 5 values in fire. And we have type in player name, type in enemy name. We have our random seed initialized. And in our while loop, we're saying if player health is over 0 and if enemy health is over 0, then perform a loop. And each of these loops is basically a round of you taking a shot at the enemy and the enemy taking a shot out at you. We have if fire, then you fire a shot. If it's 50, then critical hit. If it's 0, then you miss the shot. We reset the random index back down to 0 and then perform another random enemy name, the enemy name fired a shot, and then player health equals player health minus fire. And the fire has a random index, and that's what kind of generates that random number. Then we have the same thing, critical hit or missed a shot. Now we have in here, if you win if the enemy health is less than or equal to 0, and then you lose if your health is less than or equal to 0. So this is an overview of our program. Let's run it and see what happens. Local Windows debugger, and it comes up. Type in player name. We're going to say TJ. Type in enemy name. We're going to say John. Your health is at 100. John's health is at 100. Your health is at 100. Press F to fire at your enemy. So we hit F. You fired a shot. John fired a shot. John's health is at 75. Your health is at 75. We're going to hit fire again. You fired a shot. John fired a shot. And you got a critical hit. Or no, it looks like John got a critical hit. John's health is at 60. Your health is at 25. F to fire again. And then you fired a shot. John fired a shot and got another critical hit. And you lost. It should have a random outcome each time. Let's try this again. TJ. Enemy name is going to be John. John health is at 100. Your health is at 100. F to fire. You fired a shot. John fired a shot and got a critical hit. Man, John's always getting these critical hits on you. Or on me. And then we hit fire again. And again. And John shot missed. John shot missed again. And then we lost. Let's try it one more time because I'm sure that you can win at this. TJ. John. Just go through the motions. Finally, you win. So we have a working game, which is pretty awesome. It took a little bit of time to put together, but it is working. And one other thing I wanted to tell you about before I ended this tutorial was I wanted to briefly talk to you about classes. What a class is it's similar to a struct, and it can contain members. But one thing that's cool with it is you can subclass things. So let's say I created a character here, and then I said that I created a player and an enemy, and I made this a struct. Well, a class can basically do the same thing, but except for a little bit more in depth. So how to create a class is you first type in class instead of struct. And basically the layout is very similar. Now, one thing I want to mention is when you put members in a class, it defaults to private, and what that means is like whenever you subclass a class, basically unless those members are public, it will not inherit members from its parent class will not be passed down to the child class if the member is not if the members are not made public. How to make members public is you type in the keyword public colon, and then basically this will make it to where now character is now instead of being a structure, it's a more advanced structure, and it's called a class, and these members are now public. Putting together that game was challenging, and I hope you learned a lot. Hopefully you're able to type in this code all on your own and make it compile. So this is going to conclude my YouTube series for right now. I'm going to post more later on about like how to do more advanced things in C++. If you've watched all these videos and you're ready to learn more, what I would recommend doing is going to 3dbuzz.com and look at some of their classes that they offer, especially in C++, because they will go a lot more in depth and you will learn a lot from those classes. I do challenge you to learn about a few other things. So if you were to YouTube certain keywords, you'll come back with some videos that will definitely benefit you. One thing I challenge you to learn about is bubble sorting. Google or YouTube bubble sorting C++. Another big one is a link list. YouTube or Google link list and try to learn the concept of a link list. If you can get that down, then you are moving way beyond an intermediate programmer and into an advanced knowledgeable programmer. I really had fun making these videos for you guys, and I hope you enjoyed them.